right, so hi everyone. This is Candace Crowd-Goldman for Quantum Healing and Beyond. And today I'm just catching up with my really good friend and fellow practitioner, ultimate magical colleague, Nicole Radke. Hi, Nicole. It's been so long since we've talked.
It feels like it's been years. It's only been a few months.
Has it really even been that long? That's crazy.
It's been probably about 3 months, but yeah, so much has happened. Well, I think it was before May because that's when life started changing for us. So
right. And
I'm so happy to be here.
That's right. There's so many things I want to catch up with you about. You just finished writing an article for our practitioner blog with an amazing story. I want you to talk about that. You've got some really interesting things going on in your business there in Missouri happening. And I'm remembering the last time we talked, it was really interesting. I was like, hey, Nicole, and you're like, yeah, I'm waiting for a new freezer to be delivered. And I'm thinking new freezer. And do you know what? Within like minutes of you and I having that conversation, do you know what happened?
I think you texted me something about something with you with the freezer.
My freezer quit like minutes after. And I'm like, thanks a lot, Nicole.
Well, I got a double freezer. We were waiting for a delivery we'll kind of get into the story there. We're opening a fresh food market in our downtown area that we've been living here for the last 13 years. And we don't have anywhere close to us that you can go to a grocery store. You know, all the big box stores are pretty far out. So we really have a food desert. And so, yeah, we were waiting for the delivery of the freezer of that. And so I'm standing in the middle of the intersection. There's 2-lane traffic and this little median and this giant truck. And yeah, it was the whole experience. But it's been a wild ride, but it's been so enjoyable.
So talk to me about that. I love, it's an interesting phrase you just threw out there, a food desert. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people that live in urban areas don't have access to food. You might have a convenience store or a gas station or something like that close by, but to really get fresh food is not always available because you have to go to a big box store, and those are usually on the outskirts of town. And our town in itself is unique in a way. We have over 70,000 people, but in our 15-mile radius that we have, in the last year we had, I believe it was 5 or 6 grocery stores closed down, just overnight shut their doors. So it really kind of left a gap down here. But I have to kind of step back and really talk big picture about all of these things because otherwise we're going to kind of miss what's happening. But that's what's happening in our life right now is we're opening a grocery store, which I never, ever would have thought. But it's been so much fun. It's a different way of connecting to people. I was thinking the article that I wrote for the practitioner blog was basically about how do we deal with daily life. And at the end of the day, you have to get out there and you have to participate in life, and you have to accept where you are. You have to love what you do. And so that is, a mindset change and an attitude change. And that's what we do as practitioners. We help people through those realizations that they make for themselves. What is a happy life? What would I be doing? What would it look like? And then life becomes really ordinary in a way. But so yeah, lots been unfolding.
So tell me about your idea of your grocery store. I mean, just basic stuff or fresh food, and it can't be all that large where you are, right? It's kind of
we only have about 800 square feet, but it's in an old historic building. It's always been a market. So that's kind of just interesting, the energy that exists there. It's a different way of it literally fell into our lap. Along with doing the sessions that we do, and if there's practitioners listening, I really want them to understand that when you're sitting in a session, whether it's an intuitive session or a quantum healing session, whenever you're working with people, the information that's coming is just as valid for you as it is for your client. All the stories I've heard touched on different areas of my life. And so slowly things were coming together, and I wasn't realizing it until Mother's Day. We got a phone call from a friend of ours that we've known for quite a while, asking us to come up and have a beer. And well, we thought it had something to do with a job offer for my husband. Well, it turns out it was this offer for the store. He's like, hey, I want to open this market because it'll be right next to my cafe that I'm doing, and but here I want you to run it. So of course, who we are is like, yeah, we could do it, no problem. But we just decided we were going to take that opportunity and just go with it until we hit a roadblock. And we've not hit a roadblock yet. We literally that day, I kid you not, we have 12 cents to our name. Like, I had all my bills were paid, everything was done. But as many other people, you kind of live month to month and you have to make ends meet. But there was an intent and an attitude that we've been working on that, just to enjoy life. And so that was kind of the birth of that. And so one thing has come together after the other. We got a grant from the city that helped to pay for all like the expensive refrigeration and things. We had all these connections that came together. And it was really just talking to people, because every conversation that we had led to another resource. So if we kind of step back and think about, all these changes that we've been talking about and shifting and new world, old world, what does that look like at the end of the day for us? And that was, in our case, is all these things are unfolding. So we're going to have local farmers that are supplying our produce. We're getting fresh food and eggs and things up from the Amish community, as much local as we can, but then, we'll add other stuff to it. So you'll be able to walk in. It's not going to be a grocery store where you can pick a box of cereal off the shelf, but you can get your grains, you can get your meat, you can get your produce, you can learn how to cook. These are back to basic things. What do you want life to be? Like, for me, that's soul food. So it's a different way of doing what I've been doing all along. But
well, that's great. Well, for those people who are watching all around the world, actually, hopefully, probably, tell everyone where you're located, where your grocery is, what it's called, how they can find it if they're in your neighborhood.
So I am in St. Joseph, Missouri. We actually had the eclipse passed right over St. Joseph. The maximum totality of the eclipse was literally over our town. No coincidence there. But yeah, we're right in the Midwest in Missouri. I've been here about 16 years, immigrated from South Africa. So yeah, I'm always up for a challenge. But it's more than just serving the community. It's really educating people that you need to make a difference in the area that you live. So, if somebody's listening to this, take it as inspiration and see what are the needs in your community. What can you do? What can you contribute? How can you have people working together? And something will unfold from that. But it's going to take work. It's not going to just, magically happen overnight, even though things fall in your lap. And that's the beauty of it, that you get to put in your time and your effort and your labor, but it's not work at the end of the day, because it's labor of love.
Yeah. Well, that just sounds wonderful. So does your grocery have a name?
It's Friedrich's Market.
Okay. And where's that name come from?
Well, we're on Frederick Avenue. And so we had to kind of pick a name that people would remember. That's a little bit different. So we couldn't choose anything too weird. Because, just again, kind of the town that we live in. We have to kind of be sensitive to those things. And we looked at all the different Friedrichs through history that have had different philosophies and things. So our idea is to have paintings and stuff of Friedrich Nietzsche and things like that up. So we're not quite sure how we're going to do that. But
that's amazing. Well, listen, earlier at the top of the program, I was talking about your eclipse story. I said that some of the other changes that you've made. And, you know, Nicole and I hooked up a few minutes before the show to talk, and I was like, don't tell me anything. I mean, I read, of course, your article, but you had an amazing thing happen. And not that it has anything to do with me, but for me, it's so pivotal. I know what was going on that night, because that was the night of the lunar eclipse, because that was the night of my birthday, and all kinds of stuff was going on.
Oh, it was your birthday?
That was my
birthday.
Well, thank you, but you had that thing happen to you on your
birthday. Did. It was so strange. You know, nothing to me is strange. I tell people that all the time. Through all the work that I've done and the stories that I've heard with my clients, nothing to me sounds weird or strange. I feel like I talk to ETs all the time in my sessions. But there's been this build up of energy and a buildup of stress. And as I tell the story, I want people to see that the things that they're experiencing in their daily lives have a bigger connection to other parts of them. So it's been kind of, you know, a stressful time, but yeah, I'm healthy, no issues there. Actually had an episode in February, got all checked out. Everything's fine. Everything's wonderful. And we had a barbecue. We were sitting outside around the fire. Everybody had left. My mom had been here visiting from South Africa. I was talking to my husband and my youngest daughter, and we were in a really deep discussion about people's emotions and how they internalize their emotions. And I could feel inside of me something was happening. And it felt to me like fear is what it felt like, because this is kind of what we were talking about. And it became so intense inside of me that all I could do, it's almost like I can't hang on any longer. And all the sounds sort of faded out, and I could hear these tones, and they were really loud, like somebody was like switching through a radio station, like looking for a signal, or different tones changing. And it just became so intense that I just had to just surrender to it. And as soon as I did that, everything just sort of faded to black. And I have this very vivid memory or recollection of having a conversation, and I say conversation because I don't think it was words, but having this almost telepathic conversation with these light beings. So no, it wasn't like a descript place. It's almost like that didn't matter, but there was this conversation happening. And then I could feel myself kind of fade back into the tunnel. It felt like I was going through turbulence, like on an airplane that's just like shaking like that. And then everything faded back in. At this point, I was leaning forward, and all this fluid was coming out. Now, we had dinner. We had barbecue. That's not what came out. It was all water. But there was such a marked difference in the way that I felt, though even my body felt like it had just kind of been through like this huge purge, and everything was shaky. I had never felt so peaceful ever in my life. It felt like all that purging and everything that came out was like lifetimes of fear and worry and stress and anxiety, and not just, you know, from that moment. And it hasn't come back since. It's, you know, like everybody kind of has stuff, but it's been so different. The first thing I heard, of course, my poor husband got all of this on him. The first thing he says to me is, "Welcome to the planet."
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, so my family was sitting right there and witnessed all this, and I've never felt better after that. But that was kind of the start of things. And I didn't realize it was the lunar eclipse until the day after.
Yeah, the new moon lunar eclipse. I mean, It was the beginning. Oh, that gives me goosebumps. It was the beginning of what, Sandra Walter, our guest just before then, calls the Emerald Gateway.
Yeah.
You know, all the stuff that's going on with us.
Yeah. And there's a lot of these terminologies and things that people talk about that I don't really get to hear because I'm so busy with other stuff. I don't have time to watch the videos and read and, you know, as much as I would like to. I usually find out after the fact, which is kind of nice for me because it's like, oh, okay, you know, I'm not losing it. but that was, for me, that was the sort of the reconnection to a part of my emotion that was, for whatever reason, it needed to happen. And I think that was happening to all of us. And so that kind of led to the eclipse. As 3 days, 3 nights in a row before the eclipse, I've been having these water dreams. Now, the water dreams I've had for the last year. Many people have had them. You'll dream of tidal waves or water rising. And in this particular dream I had, I went up in this sort of spiral building or structure, and there were all these trees everywhere with food, like fruit and things growing on it. And all the anything that grew in there was free. You could have it. So there was no shortage of food or anything like that. By the time that I exit the structure, I was in a like a basin type landscape, and there was this very, very tall, I couldn't figure out if it was water or if it was sky. Am I seeing a tidal wave or am I seeing sky? And so I could see like there was like a little ship at the top, which to me looked like Noah's Ark, which was interesting because, you know, I don't follow that so much. And then this tidal wave came, and I could feel my body tense up. So I was trying to figure out, how am I going to survive this? You know, because all this water is coming. And I just heard this voice, my higher self, saying, just relax. If you relax, you'll pop right up to the top. And that's been the message I've been getting over and over and over again. Just relax. Just stay calm, and you'll move through all these things. And so that led us up to the eclipse. We were sitting outside our store because we had a pop-up event for that day, and it was cloudy. All these people were coming into our town to watch this eclipse, and it's just clouds and rain and thunder. And I never felt happier, because I felt like it was such a validation for what we've been receiving intuitively and through our sessions and all these things. And so, yeah, all this water. When I came home that day, we had some friends that stayed with us for the eclipse, and then they left. We came home later that evening. And as I was going through and went to my bedroom, right in the middle of the bed, on my side, all the way through the mattress, completely wet. We haven't been there. Don't know what it was. Just wet, so soaking wet, as if somebody had just poured something on there like minutes before we walked in. And you had something like that happen just as we were talking. Just
now, there's water coming. Yeah, right as we were starting the show, there's water coming from the ceiling of my place. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Did you look up?
There's my roof above. There's nothing above that. Yeah, it was just this puddle on the bed. Not very big, but it soaked all the way through. Oh, but it was just another one of those things that's been happening. When I was writing the latest blog post, about the shadow of emotions, don't let your emotions overshadow you. It really became clear to me that all these dreams and things about the water that we've been having, the water wasn't coming from an outside place. It wasn't raining, and now you have all this water. It was water that was already on Earth that was shifting and changing. So if there's an earthquake somewhere, that would make the water shift. As I was sitting in meditation, I was at Roaring River State Park in South Missouri. And there's a picture of it on the blog. I didn't know anything so beautiful existed, like almost in my backyard. It's just a few hours drive from here. And I sat there that morning. There was not a soul around me. And I just felt so privileged to be able to sit in this space and not connect to myself, but connect to the creation that's there. How did all this come to be, and sort of the birth of all those things. And I realized that this waterfall that would usually come down and hide this cave that I could see that the water was coming out of the spring. Normally it would be hidden behind the waterfall, and the water wasn't flowing. It was just a little trickle. But all this water from underground were coming up through the springs, about like 20 million gallons a day or something. Just bright blue water. And it dawned on me, this is us. We have to meet this change that's happening. Yes, we have help from wherever and outside, if you want to call it that. But the change happens within us. And now we're seeing the manifestation of those changes almost literally daily, where this is what I was telling you before. I can't plan for the next day. I have my calendar. I have things that are on my calendar. Every day my calendar changes. And this is not something that I'm used to. I'm an organized person. I want to know what's coming. So it really teaches you, if we're saying go with the flow, you have to relax and just go with whatever arises. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. If you resist, or if you have resistance, then that's going to be difficult.
Listen to even the words that you're saying. Go with the flow, and flow is water, or whatever arises in the rising water. I mean, even just listen to our language like that, right? Yeah. And as you're talking, I didn't have the intense physical, whatever that was, however you want to think what that was on the 7th. But, just a couple days later, I had my own thing go on with my cat, a crisis with the health of my cat. And then I had a time where I was with, I just, on the blog today, I just wrote a review of my session with the amazing sound healer, shamanic storyteller, David Manning. Yeah. And it was so wonderful. You know what he said to me? I mean, at first I almost said, I have to cancel this, because I was feeling that, exactly what you were talking about earlier, that tension and that I don't like this and I don't want it. And it was stress and grief and wanting to fix something and all of that. And I was I was going to cancel. And then of course the wiser part of me went, are you kidding? This was all divinely orchestrated for you to have this right now when you can use it. So I'm like, boo-hoo, I'm on, interfacing with David, who was in London at the time.
Yeah.
And after I basically laid out what was going on with me, and you were having all these water dreams. I had some, but for me it was cats all over the place. Cats in sessions, cats in my clients' sessions, the Lionsgate, there were cats. It was all about the cats. And then all of a sudden I'm taking my cat to the vet, who, is having this dire thing. He's like almost dying. And David said one sentence to me after I was done, like you did, only in words and tears, not with water. And he said this beautiful sentence to me. We talk about unconditional love all of the time. And you know what he said to me? One sentence. I'll just never forget it. He said, now we're going to move into the space of love without conditions, which is talking about unconditional love, but not
it's hard.
It's not in that other way, not in that kind of pat way or just the one that you hear all the time. Yeah. And as soon as he said it, it was like he pulled a cork out from under me, and that, just like you released it with water, for me, I just went. Yeah. And for me, internally, it was a little bit like, I understand that my temporal self wants my cat to be okay and is wanting to fix that, but I need to go with the flow and know that I'm loving my cat as much as I can and doing everything I can for him. And it's what it's going to be. And holding that tension in me isn't going to help him, right?
No.
And then within like an hour, the miracle is gifted to me that he suddenly not only makes a turnaround, but survives and is now thriving.
Yes.
Way better than he was even before. He had chronic health issues that are now gone. Yeah. And you've got a black cat too, and so did David. And you were telling me about your black cat.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it's interesting because that you say, like, you've had the cats and then you had your cat that, were going through these health issues. During all the stuff that happened to us, we got a new little car and the head gasket blew. And we know that, you know, the car is a representation of us. So it's like, okay, rather the car than me. But things are real. The one thing I keep hearing from my clients after a session is, I didn't expect it to be that simple. I didn't expect the answer to be that simple. Like almost like it's too good to be true. And I just remind them, I mean, that's what we're here for. There's one thing that Dolores always emphasized, and I wrote that at the end of the blog too, is that we have to remember that this is the most important life of all. And we forget that. We forget that on a day-to-day basis. We're always chasing something, I want to fix something, I want to heal something. I have to sit back and settle within myself and realize that I'm whole. If I need something to be healed, then it will be there. But all those things aside, the change in realization that I need to have, and self-awareness I need to have, is on some level, everything is okay and everything is whole and there's nothing that is broken and there's nothing that's not in place. And when you find that space inside of you, then you allow yourself to begin creating the life. If we are creators and co-creators, then you get to create the life that you want. Whether it's in your job or your art or whatever it is that you do, are you doing what you're passionate about? Can you envision yourself sort of separate from your past, meaning that your past doesn't make your future, but you have to spend as much time thinking about where you want to be. What would that look like? What would that feel like? And for what we were going through these last, and we're not through it yet, but these last few months is a reconnection to our emotional selves, because that part's being medicated and second guessed and shoved to the side. And just really put through the ringer. And we have to connect to our emotional self. And for me, this is just how I see it and how I experience it, that emotion is like a language. And I know I've told you this many times before. If you treat it as a language, what is this saying to me or about me? And using your senses, the spectrum of your senses, what am I seeing, hearing, feeling? Then you have a direct connection to everything else that you are. So there's too many things to like sum up every single thing that's happened, because it keeps happening and it keeps coming. And it just leaves you grateful at the end of the day. But it's changed the way that I do my sessions. It's changed my practice to where now I can have my practice in the way that I don't have, that's not my main source of income when all this is settled. So I can do it because I really love to do it. It takes some of that pressure off of things. Because I don't know about you and what you've heard from other practitioners, but for me personally, and I've done a lot of sessions, they've changed. My sessions have changed. The people that are coming in, they have some stuff with them. And I wouldn't say it takes a lot out of you, but it's a commitment. You have to commit to taking that information and integrating it, both as the client and as the practitioner, regardless of what type of sessions you do. And you have to be able to adjust through that.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I was thinking about the concept that we talk about a lot. We talk about the now moment, the 0 point in the now moment. And my sessions have really changed as well. They've changed since I had this energy session with David the same week, of the eclipse and the Lion's Gate. And one of the things that happened even before that, a few days before that, was just a monumental session that I had with a woman, and I've spoken about it a little bit on the forum and in some other shows, but it was Dolores was so present, and this woman was so connected to Dolores and her voice and whatever, and she was, because of course Dolores is gone, there's some people who feel such a connection to her, so they feel then by association a connection with you, what you've known and how you've studied with Dolores, etc. And this woman was no different. And she was really doubting her own connection to her. And I was saying, no, I really believe that you have this connection to her. But she was a real talker, and it was all about the story. It was all about the story, the story, the story. And she had some serious issues, emotionally and physically. And at one point, Dolores was so present in this session, and I could hear her in my own head, and the woman keeps talking about her. And then at one point in our session, she actually tells me in my head, Dolores says, the woman's laying down in trance, says, tell her to get up and go use the restroom. Dolores is telling me to tell her that, and I'm like, what? Because, I mean, you and I both know that we say when the client says, I have to use the restroom, well, that's okay, but I've never heard tell them to do that, right? And just as I was thinking, how am I going to do that? She actually sits up and she takes herself to the restroom. And that was pretty interesting. And I had just excused myself to use the restroom before then. And then this whole time, Dolores is in my head. And while I'm waiting for that woman, she actually comes into my head and she says, stop it with the story already. Don't even ask for questions. You know, in these sessions, we ask the clients to bring concerns and questions. And I have Dolores from Beyond the Veil in my head telling me, do not ask those questions.
I love that you're bringing that up, because I've been doing that for a little while. So I know that so I know maybe I'll be stepping on some toes here, but the pre-talk is very important.
Sure.
And I don't dismiss that. But I've been getting the same thing. Okay, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Let's get to working here. And that's an individual thing. It depends on who you're working with. It's not every session, but what it points to is our ability to connect on some level, not only to other beings, but to each other higher selves. And so you're hearing that, you're seeing that, and you're feeling that. That's the space that we're sharing with one another. This is what we've been through the last 4 years, is to get us to this point where we have this reconnection to our emotional self so that we can use it as a guidance system.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I love the synchronicity with that too.
Yeah. It's crazy how our work is changing, isn't it? I mean, you have to, when any client comes through the door, or that you connect with them online, however it is you work with somebody, of course you have to meet them wherever they are.
Mm-hmm.
They can be in a lot of different places, but it just keeps changing, doesn't it? And it keeps us on our toes.
It does. It definitely does. And sometimes it comes out in the most spontaneous, random ways. But I just love when people have that self-realization, when they put pieces together and realize, oh, I can do this. Oh, this is easier than what I thought. And I don't have to be in a session every time that I do it. I can learn how to do this on a daily basis. So that helps me communicate better to myself. It helps me communicate better to the people that I have to interact with all the time. It just puts you in a better place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so much has changed.
A lot of people are going through a lot of different changes these days, aren't they? And really, particularly this year, what a crazy year this has been. Mm-hmm. How do you see the rest of the year even playing out? You have any inkling?
Honestly, I don't know. And I've been trying to not really look forward in that way, but more focusing on what we need to do for our life. And by extension, that kind of flows out to the rest. Mm-hmm. But I have to ask myself, and this is what I tell my friends and other people too, when we say we're triggered by something, or all this stuff that's going on out in the world, if you have a good emotional connection to yourself, you can ask yourself, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I angry? So for instance, with that little car, I had a thing when that happened, and I felt really angry that day. And again, just higher self, well, is that really what it is? And so I had to kind of, look and say, okay, well, what is this telling me? And it wasn't anger at all. It was sadness, what it was, something completely different. So we have to learn to speak the language. You can't just shove those emotions down or temper them and say that they don't matter.
Yeah. I think that's huge what you're talking about, because there's some people, in the spiritual community that think once you're kind of on this path, oh, okay, so now that you're on this path, you don't ever get angry or jealous
No,
or
not at
mad
all.
or sad or whatever. And heck no, we're still humans. We still feel all of that. And it's a problem if you decide, oh no, now I'm waking up and I'm spiritual, I'm learning stuff, so I should never be angry. Well, that's a load of crap. You will still get angry because you're in the 3D world. Here's what you do with that. You're noticing that you're getting angry, and you actually can be okay with it a little bit, kind of like yourself is, I don't know, like a kid or a puppy or something. You go, oh gosh, you're angry. Okay, well, let's think about that for a second, right? What are you really angry about? Like you're talking about your car, and be okay with it, because the really not good thing to do is to think that you're on this spiritual path and then feel an emotion like anger and then try to pretend it's not there, or try to shove it away, or worse, shove it inside, because guess what? You and I both know what that does, right? That creates diseases and problems in your body.
And I think for a lot of people that start off on any kind of spiritual path or a path of seeking things, sometimes I think that I speak maybe a little bit for practitioners here too. You don't always have a place to share those things. And we need to be okay with one another and saying it's okay to have these human emotions and feelings, because they connect you to your cosmic body. And without that layer or that connection or that piece fully functioning, you're just not going to have the clear connection that you want. And there's a lot of people that are empathic or that have a sensitivity to feelings, that feel that they need to protect themselves. And I've said this for years, and I'll still say it. If you have a belief that you need to protect yourself, then that's what you're going to experience. I have done hundreds of house cleansings and gone into all kinds of places. I have never felt that I need to protect myself, because I'm in my higher self, and that part, everything is in order. Now, I use common sense. That's a different thing. But that's a belief system that we have, that you have to protect yourself from that. The one thing that I very strongly learned from Pamela, which I love, is, changing the frequency of your emotions. And that was kind of the start of where all this kind of came together for me as well, was taking one of her classes. But you have to elevate it. You have to take it to another place. You're the one that has to change it. It's not going to just come because you're asking your guides, your helpers, or your team of helpers to help you with it. You're going to get insight, a realization. You're going to think about it, and there will be knowledge. There will be wisdom that comes with it, and then you get to apply it. And at the end of the day, it looks like ordinary life out here.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. Pamela does use that term, frequency management, and it makes a lot of sense. It really does. And I love when we get together with other people like that, other healers and other practitioners. And actually, that may be a really good place to wrap this up, is to talk about the fact that our directory, our quantumhealingpractitioners.com directory, that's a directory for all of you healers out there, all of you visionaries, you healers, your practitioners of all kind, whether you do energy work or Reiki, or you're a life coach, or you do laughter medicine or EFT or any of those things. And we've opened up our directory to all of you. So if you are looking for some assistance, some guidance, practitioner of any kind, or if you have a practice and you'd like to list with us, please look us up, quantumhealingpractitioners.com, and remind everyone how they can find you, Nicole, there in Missouri.
They can find me online on my website. It's naturalpathways.co. I do intuitive readings, private sessions with people, also quantum healing, so they can schedule a session. I love talking to people. Feel free to call me, email me, text me. I'm always up for conversation. And on Facebook, NP oh, now I forgot my own website, my own URL. On Facebook, Natural Pathways Conscious Living Center. But yeah, I'd love to connect with people.
We'll put the links on this video as it goes around. We'll update all of that. And of course, she has a directory listing on our directory, as so many wonderful healers do. Nicole, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to encourage people to use the directory because it's, you know, as you said, it's for many different modalities, but also for massage therapists, because they work in people's energy all the time. So even if there's people like that listening to this, know that that's a good place for you.
Yeah, it really is. And particularly this too, you know, even my, you know, I'll mention him again, my good friend David Manning, who does something that is not a named modality, right? Mm-hmm. Just this sort of energy work that he does. Maybe it's an intuitive session or sound healing. It does. And then there's people who invent their own modalities. Yeah. What I love about our directory is, as far as I know, we're the only directory on planet Earth that supports people like that, who do a lot of things or do their own thing. You know, it supports the individual, and it supports actually the whole world. And it's a really cool thing. You can search by language, by geolocation, by modality, all kinds of stuff. And we're getting bigger all the time and adding more features. So thanks for bringing that part up, Nicole. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to catch up with me. And it's always so wonderful to see your face.
It was nice to talk to you too. And I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Really, really soon. Thanks so much, Nicole. Thanks, everyone, and for Quantum Healing and Beyond, and all of our team and the original Quantum Healing Support Forum, and all of you Dolores Cannon fans out there. Thank you so much. Talk to you later, Nicole. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.